But the reason that I came is I heard you guys talking about Kojima, and I was
ran
summoned
over.
by it because it's also a part of the news.
Yes.
So Kojima is he's making headlines. Part of the we're probably gonna have some more quotes, some more interesting stuff tomorrow. But he had some quotes for today, and that was that AAA games are kind of on the going down. People don't care about AAA games as much. I brought a quote. So what he said is specifically is we've seen a phenomena around the world. Young people are losing interest in high-end games and focusing on mobile and social titles, especially in Japan. And you know, that's kind of funny coming from a guy who's making a huge AAA game. But it's also something that we heard from Sony and that we've kind of seen from Microsoft on the reason that they've delayed the PlayStation 4 coming to Japan. Like it's only launched this week, and even though it's done really well, the reason that they delayed it is because they're seeing a trend that AAA games just aren't as big as they used to be compared to mobile games where the Vita and 3DS still do so well. Xbox 360 is getting outsold by the Wii U over there.
And Kojima addressed part of that as well, right? And part of the sentiment in that quote that continued was Ground Zeroes is a high-end Japanese game that's going to do the launch for the PlayStation 4 really well, right? Like, there's no Xbox One yet, but for the PlayStation 4, he's banking that that's going to sort of shift that trend.
And he wants to show, like, Japanese developers can still make really good high-end games, and in order to get this out as quickly as possible, because Ground Zeroes is the one that's coming up. Phantom Pain is the next one. Is going to be like 200 times larger, according to him.
We'll see.
To be able to get something out in time for current gen, they had to release this game now, and the one that's coming to next gen, the Phantom Pain. God, I get so confused with those. The Phantom Pain is going to be much, much larger. But they wanted to prove Japanese developers are still making good AAA games, and we're going to bring one out right now, or not right now, but when Ground Zeroes comes out.
All right, devil's advocate on this. Portable games have always been popular in Japan. Game Boy, the whole way up till modern era, they've always sold truckloads. Whenever a new color comes out of one of those machines, there's like lines around the block.
Yeah, I buy like 3 of each.
But there has been a downturn in like the amount and quality of AAA games coming in specifically out of Japanese developers. Do you think that that's maybe plays more into what he's talking about here, rather than it being a global trend?
Well, I mean, mobile is so big in Japan partially because they've embraced that technology, before we have in the West. Mobile data in specific has been way faster. Like, we've only recently caught up in the past few years.
And they had great phones way before we did. Like,
precisely.
They were always ahead of the curve in terms of mobile technology.
Yeah, and I haven't lived in Japan. You have. I've been there a few times, and from what I understand, people have pretty small apartments, and they spend a lot of time commuting. So it makes perfect sense that that's a market that is just waiting for games. And if developers deliver that and more people buy it, that's just going to justify further development.
And Sony, they do make really good AAA, really big and fun AAA games. The PlayStation 4 is not a small console by any stretch of the imagination. That's a pretty big box to have in your home. But Sony does keep putting out these good big AAA games, and I don't think that it's slowing down as much. Like, I think there's still that market for it, but America has just become bigger. The outside world has become bigger. Instead of Japan becoming smaller. I think we just give more attention to these European and American developers who are making really, really good games. It's not just condensed only to Japan, like it was when we were kids, when there was the Super Nintendo and Sega.
Yeah. All right, that's enough about Kojima. One more little piece of news as well. A new trailer dropped this morning for Batman Arkham Knight.
Arkham Knight. I mean, we saw a teaser for this a little bit earlier. It dropped on one of the stores on a European site. And then Warner Brothers just went ahead and confirmed it. Arkham Knight is going to be the next Batman game. A 4-minute trailer, but it is totally worth watching. Like, it is on par with some of my favorite trailers, like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And it shows, Batman driving through the streets of Gotham City in the Batmobile.
And the lake. He drives through
out of the lake.
Out of the lake.
It rises
He's birthed from the water.
Has there been any other details about this game? Is it going to be more open world? Is this is a next-gen title?
Well, we know it's a next-gen. We know it's next-gen. We've seen the box art, and you have to assume that it's going to be pretty big. It's going to be at least something like open world, because you have a car and you're driving around. I assume you're not going to just jump in and just go through a mini game going from point A to point B. Like, you're going to have some world to drive in. It might be, I would guess, at least on par with Grand Theft Auto 4 and its its version of New York City. Yeah. Because Gotham City is kind of like New York.
Did you already mention this is done by Rocksteady?
Exactly, and it's also done by the original developers of the Batman that we really loved. There was that kind of hiccup last year with Arkham Origins, and we're back to the original guys with Rocksteady.
I think a lot of people are going to care about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. So yes, without further ado, Justin, thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you.
All about the news.